One of the highest achievements in KVK2 is this one right here, getting 25 million kills on enemy kingdoms. In this video, I'm going to give you 10 tips for how to get this done in KVK2 so you can do it yourself. So stick around. What's up, everybody? Psych out here with another Rise of Kingdoms video. In this video, I'm going to be talking all about this achievement right here. How do you get 25 million kills in KVK2? And I've got 10 tips for you, or 10 things that you should be thinking about if you want to get to this achievement in KVK2, even in KVK3 and beyond in Season of Conquest. Now, I should say right at the outset a couple of things here. First of all, you might have noticed I'm in a different location. My friend Pink Dolphin said, "Psych out, I'm tired of you being in a room with a drab, boring wall or an ugly window behind you." And so I said, okay, fine, I'll move to my office. The problem is the acoustics in my office are not so nice. And so I'm wearing a headset today. Hopefully that helps out with the audio, but we'll see. We'll give it a go and see how it goes for this video. The other thing that I should mention here is that for this particular video, I got a lot of tips from a couple of friends of mine in the kingdom who have made this 25 million kill achievement multiple times. As you can see here, I've done it in KVK2, and while we're doing this, I'm just going to give a brief update, and I'll note one other thing that my friend Pink Dolphin said to me, which was that he said, "Psych out, I'm so tired of you just sitting there talking with a blank screen, nothing going on." So in this video, I thought, okay, well, I'll make a video, and this time I'll just smash some barbs. We are in KVK2. We are in Kingsland, as you can see. Our group of kingdoms, our allies, we have secured all of the Zone 6s. We have essentially won KVK. All that's left to do is sort out some rewards and things like that. But essentially, here we are in Kingsland, and I'm going to be farming some barbs. And the reason I'm going to be farming some barbs today is because I am going for the high honor achievement. Last we looked, I think at the honor, I was in like 600 and something place. I've pushed really hard over the weekend, and I'm all the way up to 69th place. You can see I have 101,000 honor points right now, and we're chasing those top 20 spots because the top 20 spots get this sweet city skin. I will move myself here. Persian Dream, 3% troop defense, which is pretty nice. I probably won't use that too much, but I might. But for sure, I'll use that 3% healing speed whenever I'm doing big healing. I'll switch over to Persian Dream, do the big healing, and then switch back to whatever fighting city skin I might be using. In any case, that's what we're shooting for. We're trying to get into one of these top 20 spots where you can get a permanent city skin. So I've still got some work to do. So I thought, well, while I'm making this video, why not smash some barbs? You can watch me smash some barbs. It's not super exciting content, but perhaps, as my friend Pink Dolphin said, it's better than looking at a blank, empty, or boring screen. So here we go. How do you get 25 million kills in KVK2? I talked with quite a few of my friends who've accomplished this achievement more than once. I've only done it this one time. To really get their tips and insights. Some of the stuff I knew, and I knew from my own experience, but a lot of this I picked up from them. And so a lot of that credit is going to go to them. One of those people is Ken, who gave me quite a few tips. He's achieved this at least twice, if not 3 times, he's achieved this kill mark. So he knows a lot about how to get this done. Okay, so what are we thinking about in terms of 25 million kills? Well, I've got 10 things for you that are going to help you get the job done. The number one tip, the first thing you've got to have if you want to get 25 million kills is a ton of resources. And by a ton of resources, I mean literally billions of resources. In this KVK2, I spent more than a billion resources, probably about 1.5 billion resources to get the kills that I got. I ended up with over 30 million. The card at the top where I mentioned that in another video. but that cost me like about 1.5 billion food, 1.5 billion wood, probably 700 or 800 million stone, maybe not quite that much stone, maybe it's 400 or 500 million stone, and quite a bit of gold as well, probably close to 400 or 500 million gold. So you need a ton of resources to get this achievement done in this KVK. So that's the first thing you need to do. And how are you going to get that many resources? How are you going to get those billions of resources? Well, the real key here is to have farm accounts. I mentioned my friend Ken. I'm going to make a whole nother video eventually one of these days about farm accounts and how to build farm accounts and how to make those really useful. My friend Ken has about 10 farm accounts, right? So, and by the way, Ken ended up with like 40 million kills or something this KVK, so like 25% more kills than I got. So he knows what he's talking about when it comes to getting lots and lots of kills in KVK. And so lots of farm accounts is really essential because you're going to have to heal down that hospital. If you want to get a lot of kills, you can't take all deads. If all your troops die, then you can't fight in the field anymore. You can't get any more kills. And if you want to fight on the field, then you're going to have big hospital bills and you're going to have to pay down that hospital. So you need lots and lots of resources. And just to give you some specific examples about what I mean by lots of resources, let's imagine you're a really top player. You have top tech, you're T5, you have great commanders, you have great gear. Let's just say that you end up doing 5-to-1 trades on average, right? Among the players that you're fighting against, they have some good players too. On average, you end up with 5-to-1 trades. That means for every Sev wound you take, you deal out 5 on your own. And let's also make some other assumptions. Let's assume you've got 3 infantry marches, 1 cavalry march, and 1 archer march, which is what I had in this KVK. So let's imagine that that's what you have. And now you're going to get 25 million kills with 5-to-1 trades. Based on those numbers alone, that means you're going to end up with 5 million Sev wounds yourself. You're going to do 25 million. You're going to end up with 5 million Sev wounds yourself. That's 5 million T5 troops you're going to have to heal down. That's about 3 million infantry, 1 million archers, and 1 million cavalry. Now, if you go to a place like rockcalculator.com, I'll put a link down below in the description where I mentioned rock-calculator. It's a really useful tool for doing these kind of calculations, and I go there pretty often. That's going to cost you 1.28 billion food, 1.28 billion wood, 480 million stone, and 800 million gold just to heal down those troops. So resources is of the utmost importance. Now, again, how are you going to get those resources? You need to have lots of farm accounts. I mentioned Ken, he's got 10. I have 3. I drained all of my farm accounts. And even then, that really wasn't quite enough. I started to run out of resources during some pretty heavy fighting times. And that leads you to the last place that you can get resources from, which is your friends. And luckily for me, I had plenty of friends to come help me out. And so I want to give a shout out to the people who donated resources to me in this KVK so I could get not just 25 million kills, but 30 million kills, and we could win this KVK. So here the shout outs go to Gengar, to Nickweddam, Maximus, Modib, Bim Bam, Girl Has No Name, Frosty, Crutchet, Savage Bish, Lollipop, Blackpink, Baby Yoda, and Texas Willie. Thank you all so much. Without your assistance, I would not have been able to get this many kills, and who knows how this KVK would have gone. So really, really, really appreciate you. So that's the first thing you need is billions of resources. The second thing you're going to need if you're healing down your hospital is pretty obviously lots of healing speed ups. There is a limited number of helps that you can get. I think it's around 1,000 you can get per day. So it's really challenging to heal down your hospital. And you're often going to have to be using speed ups to do this. Now, there are 2 kinds of speed ups you can use to heal down your hospital. There are the basic healing speed ups, and then there are the universal speed ups. And most people end up having to use universals to heal down their hospital at some point. Lucky for me, I had accumulated lots and lots of healing speed ups. And by the way, you can get healing speed ups by killing barbs. Another really great place to get healing speed ups if you are spending is on something like Call of the Ancients, a bundle that comes around every 2 weeks. You get both training and healing speed ups, and it's quite a number of speed ups that you can use for things like obviously training troops and then healing them. Going into KVK, I had something like 200-ish days of healing speed ups, and I spent about 100 days of healing speed ups just healing down my hospital. So that's tip number 2. right? So tip number 1, tons of resources. Tip number 2, many, many days of healing speed ups. The third thing you're going to want to do to get 25 million kills in KVK2 is AoE, AoE, AoE. And if you've seen my video about what KVK2 commanders you should be using, you'll see that I emphasize AoE, AoE all the time. And the reason for that is because that's just how you pick up lots and lots of kills. When you're in these big murder balls, these big scrums of fights, particularly in KVK2, where, to be quite honest, the players might not be that sophisticated. They might make a lot of mistakes about where their marches are walking to. They might walk into balls in weird ways. They don't target the right marches. There's all kinds of these kind of fighting mistakes that players make. Having AoE is just massive. You can just dish out so many more kills with AoE. You may have seen in my other videos. If not, you can check them out here. I ran Kusunoki, for example, as a primary commander in KVK2. Kusunoki with YSG purely for AoE, not because I think Kusunoki is a great archer commander. There's no doubt if it was El Cid and YSG versus Kusunoki YSG, El Cid would win every time. But Kusunoki offers that AoE, which picks up lots and lots of extra kills that you just get along the way. So another example, I ran Saladin Baibars. A little later on, I actually switched to Saladin Mehmed. We did a little bit of testing along the way. Turns out 5511 Mehmed is actually pretty obviously quite a bit better than than Baibars. The only downside is Mehmed does not have as big of an AoE as Baibars does. So you may say, well, I prefer Baibars. In fact, that's the reason I stuck with Baibars, is because I felt like his AoE was just a little bit more impressive. But in looking at some reports with some testing with Mehmed, I felt like his AoE was doing what I wanted it to do. And so I think Saladin Mehmed is the way to go. But point is, either way, we're doing AoE with that march. I ran Richard with Ethelfled for the AoE. I ran Alex with Sun Tzu, again, for more AoE damage, AoE debuffs. And the last one I ran without AoE damage at all was Constantine Joan, but it does AoE debuffs and AoE buffs. And so AoE is what you want to do if you are trying to get 25 million kills. If you're trying to dish out lots of kills, AoE is the way to go. All right, so that's tip number 3. Tip number 4 is pretty plain and pretty simple and maybe pretty obvious. You're going to want T5. T5 troops just make it a lot easier. When you run T5 troops into T5 troops, you can take good trades. If you have good commanders, good equipment, you're targeting the right marches, all of those kinds of things are going well. If you run into T4, even when you take quote-unquote bad trades by power, you rack up a lot of kills. So you might go out there and get a 2-to-1 trade against the T4 player, which is great for the T4 player because it's a lot more expensive for you to heal up than it is for them. But at the end of the day, if you take 5,000 Zevs and they take 10,000 Zevs, yes, that's a good trade by power and cost for you. But if you've got the resources and the healing speed ups, it doesn't matter. You've still racked up 10,000 kills. You still racked up double the amount of kills that they have. So T5 makes it a heck of a lot easier. And let me also add to that another sort of obvious sub point, which is that you want to run 5 marches. If you want to get 25 million kills, running 5 marches is really the optimal way to go. And the reason for that is because when you are surrounding an enemy, they take extra damage. I think it's 2% per surrounded march or 5% or some percent. I forget what the exact percentage is, but they are taking extra damage when they are surrounded. And if you're running 5 marches and walking through, targeting one enemy, targeting the next enemy, targeting the next enemy along the way, then you are going to be just dealing out a lot more damage, to that march that you're targeting. And so you're going to be racking up kills a heck of a lot faster. When you only have 4 marches or 3 marches, it's just a lot harder to get that many kills. So T5, 5 marches, makes it way, way easier. You could, of course, get 25 million kills with T4. You can get them with fewer than 5 marches, but it's just a lot easier, a lot simpler if you have T5 and you can run 5 marches onto the field. I'm going to need some AP here, I'm pretty sure. Let's add a whole bunch. There we go. Okay, so that was tip number 4. So the fifth tip, the fifth thing you need to know to get 25 million kills is you've got to have commitment. And that means you need to be online when the pass is open. Most of the fighting in KVK2 and KVK3 happens, well, in KVK3 it's a little different because there's ruins and altars, but in KVK2 especially, it's when pass is open, there is just huge, huge fighting. And when that fighting happens, you need to be online and ready to go. I've seen KVKs where players just said, oh, I can't make it at the time. And I get it. Look, we all have lives. We all have other things going on in our lives, and we can't always be online all the time. Or sometimes passes open, at 4 in the morning, and there's no way we could possibly be online to do that. That's okay. But if you miss an entire day when it's a critical fighting day, it is almost assured that your kill totals are going to be a lot lower, because sometimes in these KVKs, the fights don't last that long. In this KVK2, the fighting lasted for maybe 5 or 6 days once the Zone 6s opened up, which is really, I get the sense, fairly unusual for a KVK2. Many KVK2s, the fighting is over in 1 or 2 days. People, if they don't have tons of resources, they don't have tons of healing speed-ups, you fill up their hospitals and they're just done. They're just like, well, my hospital's full and I can't heal and I can't get my troops back on the field, so I guess I'm done for the KVK. Or people mismanage their accounts. They mismanage where their city is. They get off territory, they get rallied, they get zeroed, and they're done for the KVK. So that often happens in these early KVKs, and players are usually done. So that means if you're not on when the fighting happens, you're going to miss out on tons of kills. So you've got to be committed. You've got to be online when the pass is open. When the big fights are happening, that's the easiest time to get the most kills, and it's just a lot harder to chip away and pick up a few kills here and a few kills there on these little fights or these little skirmishes. When the big fights are going on, when Kingsland opens up or whatever it is, when level 6 passes open up, or the zone 6 passes open up, the zone 5 passes open up, that's when you want to be online and geared up and ready to fight. So that is tip number 5. Tip number 6 is kind of an obvious one. You want to have excellent commanders. You want to have excellent gear. You're just going to get way more kills if you have good commanders, you have good gear. I'm in KVK2, and I've seen lots of people running YSG, and he's not expertised. And of course, that it can be difficult to expertise a commander, particularly, YSG when he's early, if you're early on playing the game. Personally, I committed when I first started playing the game to expertising YSG immediately, so I spun the wheel 100 times, times 3, all 3 wheels, 100 spins. And as soon as I finished those last set of spins, I put every universal. I never used a single universal on anyone else up to that point. I never spent a single gem up to that point because I knew that I wanted to expertise YSG as my first order of business. And I put all those universals into YSG, and I had an expertise YSG. If you're out there running without an expertise YSG, he's really just a pretty average to subpar commander until you get that expertise. And so if we're talking about AoE, and YSG has the biggest AoE in the game, you've got to have him on the field, and you've got to have him expertised really to get the most effectiveness. So that's just one example of what I mean when I'm talking about having the best commanders, or having good commanders and having good gear. You don't have to have the greatest commanders. You don't have to have the greatest gear, but they've got to be good enough. You can't be out there running like, I wouldn't want to be running a Kusunoki Herman. I wouldn't want to be running, a Pelagius Baibars or a Belisarius Pelagius and trying to get 25 million kills. It's just a lot harder. First of all, some of those commanders are only single target damage. Second of all, they just aren't as effective on the field. They just aren't going to get you as many kills. And it's the same thing with gear. The better your gear, obviously, the easier it is for you to rack up more kills. So number 6, pretty obvious. Good commanders, good gear. Number 7, make sure you use your buffs. There's defense tokens, there's attack tokens, there's runes. Watch out for king buffs. When a king gives a king buff, any of those kind of buffs that are going on, you're going to want to take advantage of those and use that to give me 1 second here while I sort out what is happening. Okay, there we go. You're going to be wanting to use those buffs to maximize your damage, to maximize your damage output, to maximize the kills that you can do. So typically people recommend a defense token. Technically, there's more math behind that. I've got another video that I've been ideating on and should be ready pretty soon on understanding battle stats and which things are the most important and all of that kind of stuff. But typically people recommend using a defense token. That's a very good choice. You want to pick up a rune when you're fighting. I think the best rune that you can usually pick up is typically a 10% health rune. A 7 attack, 7 defense rune is a very nice substitute if you can't get the 10% health rune. But make sure you've got those things. Don't be afraid to go into the courier shop, spend gems. In this KVK, I did that. I went and spent gems right before the fighting and said, I'm going to buy myself those 10% tokens, right? You get tons and tons of the 5% tokens, the 5% defense tokens, and you can use those in Ark of Osiris and things like that. But the 10% tokens you really want to have going for you when you're in these big KVK fights, especially if you're trying to get 25 million kills. A 10% token, that 5% added bonus over the cheap free 5% can really make a big difference. So go for those tokens if you can. Grab a good rune. Tip number 8, don't be afraid to use teleports. You see a lot of people who try to conserve and hold on to teleports. And look, I spent a ton of I ran out of teleports in this KVK. I've gotten to the point now where I've bought teleports from the Alliance shop. I've been buying teleports from the courier station, for heaven's sakes. I mean, I just was not afraid to use teleports, and you can't be afraid to use teleports. When you see an opportunity to teleport in and do a bunch of damage to just wipe out some enemy troops, you've got to be afraid. You can't be afraid to push that trigger. You've got to say, I'm going to teleport in there and I'm going to wreck those marches. I'm going to go right now because they're out of position. And this often happens in places like Zone 5 or even in Zone 6 when the enemy's getting a little too brave, a little too bold, they're getting a little too far into your territory. You have a chance to teleport in behind them, get your marches out, and just wreck them before they can get out of your zone, out of your territory. So don't be afraid to use teleports. Don't be afraid to use your teleports. Get right up in front. Get into that action, particularly if you're a high-powered player. You might want to be a little careful if you're sort of a low-power player because the high-power players might get a little upset if you're teleporting up on premium teleport spots. So you just want to check on that. But for the most part, you just can't be afraid to use those teleports if you want to rack up lots of kills. On the same line of thinking is tip number 9, which is to not be afraid to use troop expansions. Every now and then, the courier station gives, I think 60 is the most discount. I think it's like 1,500 gems you can get the 50% troop expansions for. And anytime there was any serious fighting, I used the 50% troop expansion. I can use 25%, and I have some of those, and occasionally I would use the one here or there, but for the most part, I just use a 50% troop expansion. And the reason for that is because more troops means more damage. It's just plain and simple. Again, I've got another video coming where I'm going to be talking about battle stats and how all of that kind of stuff works. But at the end of the day, more troops means more damage, and 50% troop expansions mean you're going to be doing a lot more damage to your opponents than before they could do that damage to you. And if they're using 50% tokens, at least you're on an equal footing. If they're not, you've got a chance to really wreck them and really just dish out tons of kills and get your way towards that 25 million. So don't be afraid to use those. I used a bunch in this KVK. And in fact, there were times where it's like, man, I wasted it, and you kind of regret that. There's a lot of times you're sitting around thinking, oh, is it worth it? Is it worth to use this 50% token? Just use them. That's my recommendation, is just use them. And every now and then you go, wow, I used the 50% token, I wrecked 2 marches, and then they never came back out. That was it. That was the end of the fighting. And you feel like you just really wasted a token. But I don't know. I just feel like if you want to maximize that damage, if you want to get those 25 million kills, you just can't be afraid to use those tokens and use them often. So that was tip number 9. The final tip is if you are a T4 player, right? So a lot of this advice is for people who are T5 because it's going to just be a lot easier if you're T5. But if you are a T4 player and you think, I'm T4 and I want to get those 25 million kills, well, my best tip for you there is just to stay away from T5. If you see T5 out on the field and you learn pretty quickly who the players are, you can do little things like, let me see if I can find a march. Let me see if I can find a march out here on the field. Here, like see here, this player here, I can click there and I can get to their profile. I can see he's 72 million power. And pretty much a rule of thumb is 50 million. If they're above 50 million, there's a decent chance they have some T5. If they're 60 million, they almost certainly do. So this is the T5 player. And so if I'm out there fighting and I see that guy's out there, because now I've used his info to figure out he's probably got T5, I'll just avoid him, especially if I'm a T4 player. Just say, you know what, that's for somebody else to handle. That's for somebody else to deal with. I'm going to focus on the T4 marches. And again, you can get really good trades by value against those T5. You can say, I'm going to fight those T5 and get really good trades by value, and that's all true. But it's just going to be really hard to get that 25 million kill achievement because you're going to be doing, 1,200 kills to them, and they're going to be doing 2,000 kills to you, and you're going to say, wow, what a great trade by power. Yeah, that's true, but you only got 1,200 kills at the end of that. And if you had been fighting a T4 player in the same situation, it could have been like 8,000 kills for you to only 2,000 sevs for you. So, you would have just gotten so many more kills if you were targeting a T4 player. So if you're a T4 player, I just recommend avoiding the T5 and focusing yourself on the T4 in those kinds of situations. Okay, so those are the 10 tips. Those are the 10 things that I would recommend that you do if you want to get 25 million kills in a KVK. Now, I'm going to add 4 bonus sort of more unscrupulous tactics that you can engage in if you're trying to get those 25 million kills. So I say unscrupulous because I don't really know that these are the best things to engage in, although personally I have engaged in a few of them, and I'll explain here in a second. But sometimes these are sort of frowned upon as sort of cheap ways to get kills, not really serious fighting kills. But let's just go through them. So one of these sort of tactics that you can use, and this is one that I actually did use in this KVK, which ties in with my tip about not being afraid to use teleports, is to kill people who are returning from rallies. So sometimes your opponents will come out and rally a city or rally something that's offline or look like something's offline, and they'll send a rally out there. Or sometimes people bait. They'll put their cities out there as bait. Your opponents will send their city outside of a gate or outside of a pass to rally that city. Now they're deep into your territory, and your player, your teammate, will actually be online and just bubble. And now that march has gone all the way out to the city, is all the way out there on territory, and they all have to turn around and march back. All those marches in the rally have to turn around and march back. This is a time where you can actually teleport in onto your territory or onto your kingdom's territory, and just pick those marches off as they come back in. It's sort of a cheap way to get kills in some respects, but at the same time, these do actually do quite a bit of damage to the enemy. They lower their fighting chances, particularly when you can just swarm them with lots of marches. 5 marches against their 1. Remember, if they're in a rally, each player could only send 1 march there, so you have that march way outnumbered and just way better coordinated because you control 5 marches to their 1. So you can teleport into good spots, good choke points where those marches have to return through, and you can do a lot of damage in there. So that's one of the tactics. Another tactic you can do, which again I don't recommend, this one I definitely did not do in this KVK, is to focus on T4 players. Even if you're, and again, I gave this tip if you're a T4 player, but if you're a T5 player and you want to rack up a lot of kills, it's pretty obvious. Just focus on the T4, you'll rack up a lot of kills. Even if the trades aren't good, you'll still get lots and lots of kills. So, like I said, it's sort of an unscrupulous way to go because you're not necessarily helping your team out. Your team could probably use you as a T5 player to kill more T5. They could really use it if you were focusing on those T5s, but nonetheless, you can rack up a lot more kills a lot faster if you're focusing T4s. The third tactic or sort of unscrupulous method is to do farm killing. I'll put a card at the top where you can see a way to trap farm killers, which is a lot of fun. But if you go around and kill farms, it's a good way to rack up a lot of kills. At one point in this KVK, one of our opponents accidentally sent gatherers into our zone, and I just happened to be standing there with my troops, and I watched this, big line of gathering marches. I don't know, I think it was T1 Siege marching by to some gold node or some wood node or something, and I just wrecked it with 5 marches, and I got like 34,000 kills and like 100 sevs. So if you find gatherers, you can really get a lot of kills very quickly. but by targeting those kind of marches. So you can go around and kill farms. It's an effective strategy for your kingdom. I personally am not a big fan of it because I don't really find it to be that exciting. Some people do enjoy it, but it definitely does help your kingdom out if you can knock out some farmers and do a little bit of damage to the enemy who's doing that. And like I said, it's a good way to rack up a lot of kills quickly. When I said I got 30 million kills in this KVK, that's all T4 and T5. If you include T1 and T2, there must have been a few more than that because of instances like what I just mentioned. But some people you can get 25 million kills. By the way, this achievement doesn't require you to get 25 million kills of T4 or T5. It's just 25 million kills. And so one way to do this, if you're a T4 player, if you're a lower power player, is to actually go around, kill those farmers, kill those gatherers, and you can rack up a lot of kills like I just described using this tactic. And the fourth one, and this is one I really, really abhor. I really say you should never do this, but some people absolutely do it, and there actually is a proper time for it, and that is kill trading. So you can contact somebody from another kingdom. You can say, hey, I know you're from another kingdom. Let's trade kills. I'll put my T1s out there, you attack them with your T4s, and then we'll do the reverse, right? I'll put you put T1s out there and I'll attack them with my T4s, right? You can trade them off essentially, right? And that's a good way to rack up a lot of kills because T4 just wreck T1, and so you're going to get lots and lots of kills that way. Unfortunately, the kills, if you look at your profile, are going to be somewhat suspect. So you're looking at kills here, people can see what kind of kills you have. And if they see you've got 10 million or 25 million or 30 million T1 kills, they'll sort of go, whoa, what's up with that? Farm killer, are you just trading kills? Are you just trying to trade kills for MGE points? How is it that you're getting these kills? That looks a little suspect that you have so many T1 kills. You can see I actually go out of my way to largely avoid killing T1s. It's the lowest troop I've killed, so I don't really try to fight them very often, but some people do, and particularly in these KVK situations, people will agree to trade kills with each other to get that 25 million kill achievement. Now, I do wonder if someday Lilith is going to change since they've put in the kill point system to say, look, it's not about 25 million kills, it's about X number of kill points. You have to have X number of kill points to get the achievement. I don't know what that number should be. I haven't really thought that much about it, but that's an interesting idea. It would sort of reduce the amount of T1 trading because T1 presumably wouldn't be worth very much, and you'd have to kill hundreds of millions of them perhaps to even get that achievement to count for you. So that's one possibility to look out for. But for right now, you can trade T1s with either an allied kingdom or an enemy kingdom, and get those 25 million kills that way. Now, one thing I would say about that is that there is a situation where you might really consider trading those kills. So imagine you're sitting at 24,500,000 kills, and you're sitting there going, oh, and the KVK is over. Your team has won, or your opponents have won, or the most of the fighting is done, and everyone's just sort of recovering. But you're sitting there 500,000 kills, 250,000 kills away from that achievement. In that situation, it really might be worth reaching out to somebody and saying, hey, let's trade T1 kills. I want to get this achievement. Maybe they're close as well, and you can arrange a deal where you can both get that achievement. And that's a situation where I could see, I'm not a big fan of trading kills, but I could see people saying, okay, this is a situation where it seems a little bit more acceptable to make that kill trade. So those are the 4 bonus tips. So we've got 10 tips for getting 25 million kills in KVK. I'm going to review them really quickly. First of all, you need billions of resources. Second of all, you need lots of healing speed ups, hundreds of days probably. AOE. Number 4, T5, 5 marches. That makes it a lot easier. Number 5, commitment. Be there when the passes open up. Be there for the big fights. Number 6, good commanders, good gear. Pretty obvious. Number 7, use buffs, use runes to your advantage. Pick up those extra kills that way. Number 8, don't be afraid to use teleports. Number 9, don't be afraid to use your 50% expansions. Number 10, if you are T4, stay away from T5. And those are my 10 tips for getting 25 million kills in KVK. That's it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell notification. That way you know when I put a new video out there. And I will see you all in the next one.